So much great stuff covering this. I'm going to bring in now Suffolk Community College professor Nicholas Giordano. Nicholas, what's your reaction to the ruling? I think at the very heart of this is that Joe Biden just doesn't have the authority to make this kind of decision, wiping out all of this debt. What's your reaction?
Well, I'm not surprised by the decision. It went how I anticipated. But even with this decision, it still doesn't tackle the real problem, which is the high cost of college education. And that is largely attributed to the government that got involved in the student loan business, as well as the idea of just pushing four-year university bachelor degrees. I teach at a community college. I talk to my students. And my students chose community college because it's fiscally responsible. It's a viable alternative. And we need to stop pretending that the only solution to a successful life is a four-year degree, where we have trade schools, we have community colleges, and students could go out, they could start their own business. There are viable solutions to have a successful career, and I'm the product of a community college, and I've been successful too.
Very good. So, Nicholas, I guess my next question, we've been kicking this about, is what happens from here? We're expecting the president to maybe come out with an alternative plan to try and get around this. I mean, how do you see this playing out?
Well, Speaker Pelosi said that the president didn't have the authority. Democrats were in agreement that he didn't have authority. Now they want to do some backdoor attempt to try and give him the authority to do this. But the truth of the matter is, again, it does nothing to solve the real problem of high tuition costs. And if Democrats put in as much effort as trying to find some backdoor attempts to actually fixing the real problem.
Well, I think we lost you. Did we lose you, Nicholas? Are you still there?
Canceling student loans isn't the solution. We need to make sure that we don't encourage this sense of entitlement within the student body.
Yeah, and this is a major plank in his platform, Nicholas. And so we had a reporter earlier today who said, look, there's a 1965 Education Act that basically says that the Education Department has the authority to wipe out student debt. I wasn't aware of that. That's one of those weird aside things. But if the administration tries to use something like that, I would imagine we're just going to be straight back in court again, right?
Correct. We start at square one. It will go through the court system. It will certainly be challenged.
Interesting. Interesting. So do you think this is getting resolved anytime soon? Because it's very likely that the administration is going to try and come up with a, to your point, backdoor deal.
Well, I think that what we need to do is start looking at why companies and municipalities like Pennsylvania and Virginia are moving away from college degree requirements. And I think that right there tells us that there's not enough value anymore in the four-year university system where people are seeking alternatives.
And that's a positive thing, to your point, Nicholas. People pony up an awful lot of money, and what I want to know is, what's that money paying for? Is it for long-term tenured professors who are on big salaries? I mean, it's gotten, quite frankly, out of hand. Would you agree?
I would certainly agree. College tuition has increased 168% in the last 30 years. And now you have colleges and institutions requiring degree requirements of diversity, equity, and inclusion in every major you could think of. So people are reconsidering their approach. And as the Leadership Institute of Campus Reform, we've been reporting on the useless college classes like adulting, the right to be lazy. I mean, why should the taxpayers be responsible to pay for students to take those types of courses?
You're absolutely right. Let me stay there if you can, Nicholas. Very quickly, I want to bring Edward Lawrence in again. Edward, we are getting the sense we will hear from the president, whether it's a statement or we're going to see him in person. Do you know how soon that could happen? Are we looking at noon, somewhere in there, or maybe early afternoon?
Yeah, Ashley, it is hard to hear. I am not hearing your show at the moment on this, but I did want to say that there's a little bit more from the argument on this. Justice Roberts rejects the arguments by both the Biden administration and in the dissent that this was precisely the kind of program that Congress intended when it enacted the HEROES Act. So obviously they are coming at this related to where the authority lies to do this. Now, Roberts, again, rejects the Biden administration's contention that that the HEROES Act gives them the power to waive these legal provisions, saying that that effort to waive here does not remotely resemble how it has been on prior occasions. So they're saying it doesn't rise to the level of the HEROES Act. That, again, was for 9/11. That's the response for it. So this is all about the authority, this decision, it looks like, the authority for the president to do this type of thing going forward.
All right, Edward, let me get back to Nicholas Giordano. Nicholas, this doesn't come as a surprise to your point. You expected this. Do you think at some point these borrowers, some 26 million, had signed up for this program? Do you think they're going to not end up having to pay?
When students sign a contract, they are committing to an obligation to repay those loans. As of right now, they're going to have to repay them. Unless Congress comes up with a plan to forgive student debt, it's going to continue to go through the court system and be knocked down. But again, what we need to focus on is actually tackling the cost of college education and promote the viable alternatives so that students don't fall into the debt trap. This is a one-time deal that President Biden was trying to do. And all it did was it keeps the problem going on longer without holding the institutions accountable for continually increasing the cost of tuition.
Yeah, I mean, is this the tipping point? We've long complained about the cost of higher education. It's gotten out of control. Is it some moment like this that maybe, just maybe, we'll get some reform?
Well, let's be honest. I mean, this is a bailout. It would be a bailout to the higher education institutions themselves.
Right.
So maybe this will actually force them to rethink their approach to how they charge college tuition. Maybe that they'll be more likely to fiscal responsibility and return on investment depending on what you're majoring in. I mean, you shouldn't take out $100,000 in student loans to be a teacher or a police officer. And those are the messages that we need to put out to reach the student body and to reach the parents out there.
Well, reform is most definitely needed. Nicholas, thank you. And again, the U.S. Supreme Court on a vote of 6-3 along ideological lines, basically